5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Ahoy, ahoy!
Need all this mayhem. We do. Alright, fair enough. Well, you know your business.
Welcome to Sacrilicious with Robin and Snerts, a Simpsons review podcast. I'm your lovable nerd Snerts, aka Joshua Stearns, and joining me is the equally delightful Robin. Don't have a cow, coward!
Hey yo, what's up, Josh? Welcome back. It's 2025.
Guess who's back? Back again. Sacrilicious is back. Tell a friend.
Tell a
Sack,
friend.
sack, 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 sack.
Sack is back, sack is back, sack is
Relicious.
back. Sack is back.
Bomb, bomb, bomb.
No.
And if you haven't turned off by now, welcome back, everybody. We hope everyone had a lovely holiday season and new year, and we are back in the swing of things. Did you enjoy the time off, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful time. Great time with my family and friends. Hectic as is always, so much fun to be had out there. But we really did have a lovely both Thanksgiving and Christmas, whole family, lovely time.
Excellent. Yeah.
How about yourself?
Same. Had a good time. I got to see my mom for 2 weeks up in Humboldt and had experienced actual winter weather, which is kind of nice.
Yes.
As much as I love
Yes.
LA, it does say 72 a lot throughout the year.
It's cold in Atlanta right
I
now.
bet.
It's barely breaking 40 today. We're going to have snow next week, they say.
Okay.
We're going to have somewhere one prediction was like 17 inches of snow. Like, I don't know if anybody remembers Snowmageddon,
No.
but Atlanta does not. We have jokes like everybody, if there's a threat of snow, they run to the store and they get water, milk, eggs, and bread.
Yeah, pretend like
and
hunker down.
You go to the store, they just all be
Yeah.
gone. Like they're like the apocalypse is coming.
Grab that extra toilet paper while you're at it, just in case.
So you 72 and Sunny can go.
Oh, I know. I
Josh.
realize what I am saying as I am saying it to everybody. But it was still nonetheless. I mean, it's like in the low 50s, high 40s up there, and it rains. So it was just kind of nice to have that difference. Plus, you get the redwoods and the mountains and everything like that. So it's just a nice little change of pace. And mom's doing okay for a 75-year-old broad. She's taking care of herself as best she can. And
tough old
it was
broad.
kind of interesting because like my back has been killing me for a month. And so mom and I had like the same kind of mobility problems. So like we both kind of stand up and we pop things into place and then kind of stumble along our way.
You watch his stories, sitting there with your mom watching the stories. Oh God, I can't believe the doctor was a twin.
I wish she still watched her stories because now it's MSNBC, women's basketball, and like reality shows for food and selling houses. And I have to tell you, man, after 2 weeks of that, I was ready for my own personal viewing habits. Nothing wrong with what she's watching. She enjoys it. That's fine. I can criticize it if I want, but like can turn around and criticize what I watch as well. So, the old pot calling the kettle black type of thing.
Well, we like our own formula.
Absolutely.
Us nerds. Yeah. But those shows are very formulaic.
Yep. And if this is your first episode of Sacrilicious with Robin and Snerts, here's how it works. One of us will pick an episode of The Simpsons to discuss. We go through the plot, provide questionable impressions, and point out our favorite bits. This week, Robin picked from Season 7, Episode 17, Homer the Smithers, directed by Stephen D. Moore, written by, drumroll, John Schwartzwelder. Pick a new fucking writer already.
Listen, he wrote so many of the great episodes.
And the first air date was February 25th, 1996. So, Robin, why did you pick Homer the Smithers?
Oh, this is one of those iconic episodes. And I was thinking about it, and I'll mention it throughout the episode in a couple of places, especially. But this was a time where some people in high school were chasing girls and tail. My friends and I were playing Ultimate Frisbee and nerding out to The Simpsons and having an absolute blast with it. And this is one of those that absolutely define some of the lexicon of the time between us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would have been in 8th grade, so I would have been living it up. I really enjoyed 8th grade. That was the only year I enjoyed of junior high because I was getting
Oh
out.
yeah.
I kind of figured things out finally after a couple of years. And so I was probably living up the heights of being a, whatever that would have been, a 14-year-old, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
And just trying to get through the rest of the school year so I can go on to summer. And then take on the whole new challenge of high school because that all went well. Jeez.
Oh, the teen years.
Well, great.
Oh,
So I did my good old behind the wiki, and maybe I'll find some kind of like cue sound or intro song for this.
yeah, I was just thinking
Yeah.
that. Dun, 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 behind the
There
wiki.
you go. What's a wiki? So when Scully pitched the idea to the writers, Oakley was surprised that it had not been done earlier on the show. He thought the story sounded like something that would have been done by the 3rd season because it was simple and organic. And I have to agree with that. This definitely has a more season 1 and 2 vibe where they were doing classic 3-camera sitcom type of episodes with the wacky neighbor
They
and the
mentioned
asshole
that.
boss and stuff like that.
So what they mentioned on the commentary was that they were trying to get back to the family, and that was they wanted to get away from, like, Homer being the most famous person in the world, or Bart being the richest person in the world, and get back to like actual real life situations. And that's what they talked about in the commentary. They kind of focused on that this
According
year.
to the wiki, they wanted to do something like 15 episodes a season that focuses on the family. And then they
Yeah.
could do like the annual Halloween, a Sideshow Bob episode, and then something weird like
Yep.
22 short films about Springfield.
Precisely, that's the exact quote.
So I'm starting to think that my whole behind the wiki segment is just somebody typing up what the commentary was about and putting it in Wikipedia.
100%. 100%.
The other part that stood out to me is Weinstein said that this episode was an opportunity for him, Oakley, and Schwartzwelder to go nuts with Burnsisms. He said that they enjoy writing for characters such as Burns and Abe Simpson because of their outdatedness and because they get to use the source for looking up old-time slang. For example, Burns answers the phone by saying, "Ahoy, hoy," which was suggested by Alexander Graham Bell to be used as the proper telephone answer when the telephone was first invented. And Robin, my question to you is, what kind of a world could we have had where everyone answers the phone? Ahoy, hoy.
Ahoy, hoy. Oh, man. That would have been something, Josh. That really would have been something.
And we've heard this from Conan O'Brien and other people before who just love writing for Burns because they just get to go nuts.
Well, I mean, we've heard it before because they throw it at other play. Like we've always throughout heard Bart gets to do some old timies every once in a while. I'm the little chimney sweep, clean as a whistle it is. And there's another one
when he's doing the prospector talk.
Old Mrs. Burns in this one, she goes, she uses the word brassifrax.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and I always had to look these up because I can't remember if it's like a word that's a real word or something they made up, and that's one that they use. But I think we should bring it in, Josh. Start using brassifrax.
There you go. I also have a memory of either mom or dad, I forget which one, getting really upset that my brother at the was answering the phone, "Ahoy, hoy," and just like, I don't know where you picked that up. And at the time, I didn't know that it was an historical reference that was accurate. I just know it was from The Simpsons. You know, and so I was like, "Oh, you got that from The Simpsons?" It's like, "Oh, that show."
Listen, we're going to talk about it again, but absolutely, everybody started saying "ahoy hoy" after.
Yeah, why not?
All of our friends started saying "ahoy hoy."
It's so much more fun.
We were just dying on it too. It was hilarious.
Yeah, and we couldn't figure out if this was the first time Burns did that, but it doesn't really matter because this is one of the
I think so though. I'm almost certain.
It just seems like it would have.
Because it really stood
after
out.
like 7 seasons, you think he would have said it beforehand, but then again, like
because now we associate with him. So
it's very true. So, do you have any thoughts on the couch gag? Cool.
No.
Moving on.
Nah, it was fine. It was fine.
Same.
But they did not do a chalkboard gag.
Correct.
These are where they started like really cutting that intro.
It depends on how long
to
the
save
episode
time.
goes as well, because
Yeah.
if they have the full extended episode that goes from everything, that means they were short on time and they needed to pad it.
Yeah.
That's also why they will add an
Yeah,
itchy and
exactly.
scratchy episode if they need to, just to kind of pad the
Yeah.
episode.
Absolutely.
And we open with the classic folks reading cue cards awkwardly. We've seen this before from Mr. Burns and Smithers. Previously, he did it when they had the summer retreat for the company at his mansion. And
Which this is a similar situation where they're doing like the company party for all the employees, where they're taking them out to the raceway to see the races for the days, and he's addressing all of the employees.
yeah, and it's kind of one of those things. It's like, everything's on me. Pause. Monty Burns. And then pause. Yay! You know.
He goes, the entertainment's on me. And then he's almost surprised when he sees his name. Monty Burns!
Obviously, he's never read those cards before.
Well, and this is a theme throughout this, is this is another where the writers and the actors and the directors are in such sync. And there's so many little things that are funny throughout, just the little things, just like the way he says Monty Burns and little expressions people do. I like, where Smithers was like, testing. There you go, sir. I warmed up the crowd for you. Like, that's the first thing. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it's
and it's also like it balances between with Mr. Burns and Smithers, where sometimes Burns is like the brains of the organization, and sometimes it's Smithers. So every once in a while, it feels like a weekend at Burnsies, and Smithers puppet master pulling all the strings. Other times, Mr. Burns is just there, and he's like the evil, like
ordering around.
And Smithers is like his henchman. So it's like like Cobra Commander, is barking out orders, and so I always love how you can kind of switch this up on the fly depending on what you need for the jokes.
I mean, yeah, Smithers, depending, is absolutely an evil henchman.
And you said they were.
Did your dad's company or your mom's company they worked for ever do like company nights? Like company outings?
I don't recall anything from my parents growing up. I definitely have had some kind of company days or company events or even department events through working in advertising over the years.
The difference is that everybody would always bring their kids. Like Coca-Cola did these every year in Atlanta. My dad worked for Coca-Cola for 40 years, and they would do it at Six Flags. And it was like a highlight of the year, 100%, because they were only Coca-Cola employees allowed, and it was a pretty special deal. So that's kind of what's going on here, is like the company outing. Everybody gets to bring their family and kids, because now, like these company events, you don't usually get to bring your family and kids anymore.
So when my mom rejoined the workforce after my youngest sister started first grade, and she started working at a handicap school called Locrans in the San Fernando Valley, and she did, so there weren't really company events. Like if you wanted to do something, you would go volunteer and help out with all the special needs kids. And so I did that once, and then I realized I was way over my head and could not handle that kind of emotional stress. And my father worked in the military industrial industries, doing like software for circuit boards and stuff to that nature. So there were a couple of events where we went out to like El Segundo, and they flew like a Coast Guard helicopter, and my dad's like, I made a circuit board for that. And we would take pictures of the torpedo in the lobby. And stuff to that nature, but there wasn't any kind of like there wasn't some kind of like event that was sponsored. Like we didn't all go to like medieval times, or they didn't shut down Disneyland for us or anything like that. It was all very small. But yeah, I do recognize that. I wonder if these are kind of events that of yesteryear, or if these things are still happening.
I'm sure like the bigger companies still do stuff like this. Yeah.
Well, I love how they're at the racetrack, and the announcer bit is.
You gotta do your announcer voice, Josh. Your announcer voice is awesome.
Welcome to the Springfield racetrack, featuring beer.
I love this when he goes. He goes, our first benefit race is a benefit for Daredevil Lance Murdoch, who's hospitalized with cirrhosis of the liver.
And of course, Homer goes, woohoo, liver.
Liver. younger.
And we see Mr. Burns in the front, and he is getting spoonfuls of beer from Smithers. And Burns goes, "I don't feel any younger or funkier. I'll switch to the tablespoon, sir." Which I love the idea that he takes like a little sip of beer, and he's like, "I should be younger and funkier."
It's literally putting out like
Yeah,
medicine and feeding it to him. He's
so
like,
good.
I don't feel younger or funkier.
Yeah, and but he also asked the drag racers to slow down, and I love how
I know, that was great because it's drag
Yes.
racing is what
quarter
they're
mile
seeing.
drag racing.
And he hands him the binoculars. He watches. He's like, they're going too fast. Tell them to slow down.
And I also love how the parachutes deploy, but like it's even though they're going in for like they're very slow, and
Yeah, they're in first gear.
yeah,
Still,
so they just
you
kind of
know?
like pop out and immediately just flop to the ground. It's very anticlimactic. I also love how even though they're wearing the full racer helmet and all you see are their eyes, they made them scouring. Like they're very angry that Mr. Burns is making them do this,
Mhm,
which I thought was
mhm.
pretty funny.
Very the expressions throughout this. They're just the animators. Everybody's in such good form.
Absolutely. And so
So
we're done with the event. Smithers is trying to give him a souvenir of like a big novelty foam hand.
because he's got a big
Right.
big novelty ones. He's like, this one's too big. Like, give me a smaller one.
And during that time, Lenny, who's a little bit drunk, comes up and he's like, excited. He just had a nice event with the company on the boss's dollar, and he goes up to him and he's like, "Oh, hey, Burns, you got a great small event." And it's totally
And Burns is terrified of him.
yeah, and Lenny isn't doing anything bad, even though he's drunk. He's just kind of like, "Let me shake your hand, man. This is great."
Hey, let me shake your hands. Like he's gonna give him a hug or
Yeah.
something, and Burns is terrified.
Right,
of it.
and then so Smithers like comes in and he's like, "I don't get the smaller hand, but whatever, it's what Mr. Burns wants." And he springs into action, and basically he says, "All right, Lenny, let's keep going. It's nothing too dramatic." But then Lenny turns and gives a thumb up, like he's like the excited. Yeah, and we see Mr. Burns cower in fear. He's like in the fetal position.
It is almost. Oh, absolutely, and it is a little bit like, you feel it. You feel his fear in it, like where he is. They do such a good job because when Lenny turns around, you're like, oh no, like what's gonna happen?
It's a great juxtaposition.
You also loved the when Burns is in the limo with the open window, and so to get away, he rolls it up, and Lenny's face goes up.
It's so good. It's so well animated.
Great animation.
Yeah, and they do a really great job again with like the musical cues and the animation cues to show that Lenny was just being an innocent drunk who wanted to thank his boss, and Burns just like freaked out because he had to deal with somebody.
And Burns is very sorry about it, as he says. What does he say? He's like, never.
Smithers. Smithers is upset, and he's like, "I failed you, never again." Because
never. And and he's like, you know what? Don't worry, Smithers. I had my mace, and of course, it's a real mace, like a swinging, violent weapon.
Like a medieval weapon.
On the side of his car, hanging inside of his car, because of course Burns would have a mace, just
and also case. Like he would not be able to lift the mace, which is hilarious because he's so weak. He could barely lift a baseball bat in a previous episode, so I don't know how he's going to do that. I also love how Burns mentions his breath reeked of beer and pretzel bread.
Pretzel bread.
So
you don't refer to it that way? Pretzel?
No. I call it naughty bread.
Oh, there you go. It's naughty.
So what does Smithers do the next morning to make up for it?
So he's bringing us our Mr. Burns breakfast in the office, and he's just groveling. He feels so bad about the incident, and he's like, "I alphabetized your breakfast for you from waffle to Zwieback."
What the hell's a Zwieback?
It's just funny. Like, it's just like to make up for it, he's trying to alphabetize his breakfast, but Zwiebacks were teething crackers that they used to give to like very young children, and they'd basically gum them and they'd break down and eat them. They were very crunchy. They kind of looked like biscotti, but Zwiebacks were delicious. Like, I used to eat them like cookies, and I loved them. I don't know if any of our listeners remembers Zwiebacks, but we always had them around when my younger brothers were young and
Interesting.
And then, but he also has now laminated the morning
Yes.
paper so he doesn't get ink on his fingers. But it's a problem
Because Burns can't do the junior jumble.
because when you laminate, you can't do the little marker on there.
I always I thought it was great too. It's not a crossword puzzle like you would get from a typical guy. It's a junior jumble.
He does it every morning, clearly.
And then so Smithers freaks out and he tries to drown.
Because of that, because he's failed him again with the lamination, just ruined his morning. So now he's so desolate, he's going to kill himself.
And he does that by trying to drown himself inside a water cooler. So he removes the top jug, sticks his head in the water. Mr. Burns calmly walks over and turns on the spigot. And the audio is great because you just hear like,
is what absolutely one of those things in this episode. Just him calmly walking over and draining the water out by holding the spigot down is just.
It's pretty funny. I also just love the idea of somebody trying to drown themselves in one of those. Like, it's just like out of all the things, you know.
I don't think my head would fit in there, my giant noggin. So Burns is like, like, calm down, Mr. Smithers. Like, you clearly need a vacation.
No, I'll never leave you.
He goes, without you, I'll wither and die.
Yeah.
Burns goes, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
That's so good. But of course, he needs a replacement, right? So Smithers goes to the computer and he looks up incompetent. And how many results does he get?
Because he doesn't want somebody too good to replace him. He wants somebody.
Yeah, so 714 employees come up as incompetent.
He's like, let's use some more keywords.
Like?
Like lazy, clumsy, dim-witted, monstrously ugly.
714 employees.
Still, all of them are defined by that way.
Nuts to this. I'll just go get Homer Simpson, which we all knew was going to happen anyway.
They called that out on the commentary too. They were like, because they've done this before where it narrows it down. They're like, oh, Homer Simpson. And this one, he's just like, forget it. It was them making fun of themselves.
I also like how supportive the family is about Homer's opportunity here to impress Mr. Burns with some one-on-one time.
Yeah, he comes home and he's like, I think Mr. Smithers picked me because of my motivational skills. Everyone always says they have a lot of work to do when I'm around.
I'm getting some weird like PTSD flashbacks to my day job. Like, no, just do your job. Stop being a Homer Simpson. Be a Smithers.
There's a funny line there where Lisa goes, this is just one of those silly throwaways of this episode. Lisa goes, Dad, assisting Mr. Burns could give your career a real shot in the arm. And then Marge comes out and is like, Homer, assisting Mr. Burns could give your career a real shot in the arm. And Lisa goes, I just said that.
I also love how Marge is like, go get your own darn corn next time.
She's like, sorry. Yeah. Next time you get your own darn corn there.
So in the morning, we got training with Burns, for Burns with Smithers and Homer. And I love this line from Smithers. Now, I realize caring for Mr. Burns seems like a big job, but actually it's 2,800 small jobs.
Because your newer duties will include answering Mr. Burns' phone. I think he says like tax preparation.
Moistening his eyeballs.
Lying to Congress. Great. And then of course the first call comes in while Homer's sitting there, and dun dun dun, it's Burns' mother. Burns' mother is still alive?
Yeah. She has a limited capacity. All she can do is dial and yell, which
all she can do is dial and yell. Oh, man.
Also, I love the throwaway joke about mom having an affair with President Taft. And I know you loved Homer's line.
He goes, Taft, you old dog. Good evening. We at the Springfield Historical Society have uncovered new archival recordings of an infamous affair between Daphne Burns and President William Taft. For those unaware, the mother of tyrant Charles Montgomery Burns ditched her husband Clifford for some executive action back in 1911.
Previously, historians based this infamous infidelity on letters between the two and a scandalous newspaper article. Now, for the first time ever, we have secret recordings made during one of the afternoon tea sessions. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Taft's Democratic opponent, William Jennings Bryant, wanted to use the recording to discredit the sitting president. According to his diary, Bryant had a change of heart and felt releasing the recordings would be distasteful and a violation of personal privacy. Now, folks, you can tell that was a different era.
And now, without further ado, here's the recording.
I do say your ankle is ravishing, Daphne. I fear my self-restraint will not survive such an onslaught of beauty.
Well then, come and get some, Big Bill. Ooh, tickle me.
Fascinatingly disturbing. Well, there you have it, folks. Another archival gem from the Springfield Historical Society. Keep reading, keep researching, keep being historic.
Like he's knowledgeable about who Taft was. He's like gets a little more information.
Homer
about
Simpson famously has an encyclopedic-like knowledge of the Supreme Court, and not only was Taft a president, he was also a Supreme Court justice. So if you're going by that logic, it makes sense that Homer would know a little bit more about Taft compared to the other presidents because of his service on the judicial branch. Yeah.
But in this episode, we see with these things, with them, they're having so much fun with the characters in this episode. Yes. It is taking these characters that you have started to get to know, and so you can do much more subtle things.
Sure, absolutely.
With them and these, and that's a kind of a key to this episode, and that little back and forth right there is an example of that. But
I also love how when Smithers is basically saying like, "Oh, Burns, Homer is a replacement," and of course Smithers is like, "Who? One of your organ banks from Sector 7G." I love those throwaway jokes from Smithers. He always had like one of the
organ banks.
Stool moistener, organ banks, like like a lazy lover, like there's all sorts of good ones from Smithers describing the workforce there. And of course,
there's also
the Burns not remembering Homer is a running joke for many seasons.
Because he mentions, Smithers says, Homer Simpson, all the recent events in your life have revolved around him in some way.
Yeah, like literally his baby shot you.
This season. The whole big aspect of the Who Shot Mr. Burns double episode was that Mr. Burns cannot ever remember his name, no matter what happens.
And so Smithers is basically on his way out the door. And of course, Homer is like already like, Mr. Smithers, I don't understand 2,700 of my new duties.
He goes, pick one.
Fire?
He's like, sorry, bye.
And then, of course, the office is on fire.
I love the timing of it, is that it just comes back. He's like, oh, and he's just sitting there. And he looks in the office. It's just engulfed in flames at the moment. He goes, oh, just my luck.
I also like how when they come back from the commercial break, because it's kind of a fade out, fade in, he has a fire extinguisher and he's like putting out the last remnants of the fire. So he sprang into action over the commercial break. And that's one thing that I like about this is like, Homer is not half-assing it. He's using his whole ass this entire episode. No. It's just his whole ass sucks. So the results are still failure, but he is really trying his best.
He's really trying. And that's a big aspect of this is we see is he's very much trying, and he is getting a lot of abuse.
Yep. So Mr. Burns rattles off a number of outlandish tasks for Homer, stuff like rotate my entire office so it can face the sunset, and
install the computer system.
Right. Find me a dodo egg for breakfast. Yeah, just random old stuff, and ridiculous things that is impossible to do.
And Homer's being studious, like taking them down, but he had the little funny gag where it's like,
I love this line. Can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said all about the things?
You know, the things.
Yeah.
And and
Uh,
and Burns gives him a withering look, and Homer's like, "Ooh," and backs out of the room slowly. So, Homer is really now he is geared up to try and impress Mr. Burns because this is a big opportunity for him. And so we find him waking up at 4:30 in the morning and trying to put his
yeah.
pants on. He's like, "Goddamn two-legged pants." Hello. So he's like, "I gotta go make Mr. Burns breakfast." And Marge is like, "Oh, poor Homer." And she just falls right back. Real couples
And
moment there. She's like,
when he's making the breakfast, this has become a meme of all memes. It's almost as famous
"Oh,
as
yes."
the one of Homer backing into the bushes. So Homer tries to cook him a breakfast, and you see all sorts of weird stuff in the
He
background.
starts by
Yep.
skewering,
Uncracked eggs,
bacon in the eggs,
uncracked
yeah.
eggs,
Well, the
bacon,
kitchen
and
itself,
something else.
I mean, he's on, like, the whole chef's
Yep.
outfit, like, he says the line, and you can tell he's really, really trying to get into it. He's like, "Well, it's my job to cook him breakfast, and I'm gonna cook him the best damn breakfast he ever
Yeah.
ate."
It's kind of amazing that Homer
And
wouldn't be able to cook breakfast though, because he's such a foodie, like you'd think he'd be able to like cook bacon and eggs at the very least.
And Josh, again, this comes up a lot, is that would mess up the
Yes,
joke,
yes, 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 yes,
Josh.
yes.
Like, that's the whole point, is that the joke, right?
Yeah. So the whole bit is like he
I
has the skewers with like the bread and the eggs and the bacon,
bacon,
and
the
it
egg.
catches fire. And then
And he does it over the
yep,
stove, and it catches fire
he
naturally.
breaks the
So then
front
he
window of the microwave, right?
and then it sparks and then catches fire. He's like, "Hmm." And so he's then decided just to pour a bowl of cereal with some milk, and it
And that's
catches
the meme right
fire.
there. That's the one that everybody loves to quote and everyone loves to reference because it's
He's like,
hilarious.
"Don't!"
And so eventually he decides on donuts, and Mr. Burns is like, "Donuts! I told you I don't like ethnic food," which
Knocks it
which is
off the table,
hilarious
sprays the coffee
because
on
if I'm
him.
not mistaken, donuts was an ethnic food that was brought into the New York area from Europe or something of
Sure.
that nature, and then they eventually made it more American.
Belgium, maybe?
I
Yeah.
also love if you were paying attention to the kitchen that Mr. Burns has. There's a lot of like weird, like ice tongs, like for an old like giant cube that you would use for your
It's like
refrigeration
a
back then.
turn of the 19th
Yeah,
century.
it, it feels
Because we can't say 20th century
yeah,
anymore,
right.
Josh. Because
It feels a lot more rustic and like almost old west style.
like lots of wooden, accoutrement and
Yeah.
everything.
And we got more jokes now regarding Homer, and so like he's like Burns is like, "Oh, how are my stocks doing?" And Homer has no idea what stocks are, and he's like, "Oh, they all won. What
They all
what are
won.
my options? Well, you can get out of bed or you can stay." I think I'll get out of bed.
So now we get you start seeing kind of like what he's having to do,
Yeah.
because he then has to bathe Mr. Burns, who's going, "Scrub harder. You got to get this dead layer of skin off."
I also love how he has
And
all the
then
dentures, and then he's like, "I think I'll
he
go for the
brings up
fangs today."
for the things today. And then to describe the ineptitude of Mr. Burns, is he puts the teeth in, and then
Yeah.
his jaws just slack, and Homer even has to then go close
Yep.
his mouth. Like, that's the amount of effort that somebody taking care of Mr. Burns has to do there.
And it's a very good audio, like for the jaw closing. Like,
Yeah, I can't do it.
So we get more bits the next day in the office, and this is my two favorite ones. And he's like, so Mr. Burns makes a request for a report from the accounting department, but Homer, with his big lovable dog brain, makes a report about the accounting department.
The accounting department is located on the 3rd floor. Its hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The head of the department is a Mr. Johnson or John Stone. And Mr. Burns just crumples it up and looks at him angrily.
Yep. And then he's like, "How about my messages?" He's like, "Okay, let me go through it. You have 30 minutes to move your car. You have 10 minutes. Your car has been impounded. Your car has been crushed into a cube. You have 30 minutes to move your cube." Bring, bring,
It's great writing. Great
bring,
writing.
bring,
So
bring.
picks up the phone. He's like, "Yellow."
And Burns goes,
Mr. Burns goes,
"Is it about my cube?"
I don't know why I love that joke so. Is it about my cube?
I also love the idea that they would
Oh.
move the cube to like an illegal parking spot, right? And so they crush it
Run
and they put it right back where they found it.
So so it's actually Smithers
Yes.
calling. And he's like, "Mr. Burns, how's it going? Like, I have some free time. Like, I could do some work for you."
He's also still
And
wearing his
Mr.
work clothes and carrying a briefcase
on the
on the
beach
beach.
with his like loafers on.
Very obvious that there's a lot of men playing volleyball in the background and they're not filming Top Gun.
Mhm. Yeah,
A little bit of
foreshadowing.
hinting at what kind of resort that he decided to go to.
Mhm. Oh, it's a lovely resort. I'd
There you go. This vacation looks okay. I'll just click here and...
Do you need to get away?
Oh, that was quick.
Do you want to relax on the gorgeous beaches of Mexico and feel the sun on your body? Do you want to dance the night away with gorgeous men and feel the music in your loins?
Oh.
Come to Mexico and give yourself to our male erotic retreat.
I'm touching myself.
You will explore the beauty of the male form and
Keep
lay
going.
hands on the glistening skin.
Oh,
You will feel the stresses of your life crumple in our hands. Our world-renowned masseuses, trained in the art of love.
Fondling
In
my
their
balls again.
supple yet strong arms, you will lose yourself. Your inhibitions will die, and you will be reborn as a new man.
I'm gonna be reborn.
Come to Mexico.
I think I will.
Where you will find yourself on your back,
Oh,
legs in the air,
Oscar.
and explore all the
Louder.
beauty this country has to offer.
Oh, take my money.
But Mr. Burns at this point says I'm fine, but then he starts what is it's a diatribe of insults. They just starts hurling it at Homer throughout this episode.
This Simpson fellow seems to be getting dumber by the minute. I've never seen anything quite like it. And you just see like the face on Homer gets crushed.
You've seen it
It's
right
like
there.
calling the big lovable dog a bad dog.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It is sad. So Homer, who has been working his tail off for Mr. Burns, is home and he's just exhausted. He's been up since 4:00 in the morning. He's been, at this, beck and call of Mr. Burns all day, trying. Now he's completely exhausted at home on the couch and just like non-compass menace. And the kids come up and start trying to like get him to do stuff like do my homework. He's like, yes, Mr. Burns. Take me to the library. Yes, Mr. Burns. And I love Marge come up and she's like, kids, quit taking advantage of your father. And they like scurry off like they got caught.
I don't know, Marge. The Burns said something about long division. Simpson, lie down right now. Yes, sir.
And he's clearly just not having a good time. And just as he lays down to get a little bit of rest, you hear dong, 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 Simpson. And of course he runs to Mr. Burns' house to find him. There's an animation of this giant conal,
like a megaphone
speaker. Yeah. That's 200 yards long.
Right.
He's just actually ringing this little bell. Ding, 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 ding.
And the big emergency was a phone call, and it's been ringing for quite some time. And it's Smithers again checking in on Burns. And this time he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and he's obviously at a dance club.
Mm-hmm. He's having a good old time now.
He's like,
48 rings. Are you all right? What did Simpson do?
And then Burns berates Simpson again. And he's like, all right, sir, well, I got to go. There's a Congo line forming behind me, which I thought is hilarious.
You see him because now it's like all men. Because he's like, he's like, enjoy your vacation, but remember, take lots of pictures. And Smithers is like, oh, it's not the kind of resort where they let you take pictures, sir. But because it's still the time where you may not want your boss to know
absolutely.
that you were gay at the time, because they just change the dynamic in some places. But importantly in this scene is he calls Homer an incompetent boob, terrible at everything, and a complete moron. And is really laying into him, and you could see Homer reacting to all of this stuff. And then we get to like almost a montage of tasks where Mr. Burns is upset at Homer.
Yeah, basically it goes in this kind of rhythm where like there's you call this whatever, and he throws something at Homer. So, and my favorite of them is, you call this a supercomputer, and then he throws like something at Homer.
He's like hitting him with it. He turns the light on. He's like, 60 watts. What do you think this is? A tanning salon?
Yeah, you call this a tax return. You call this a whatever. Like,
you call this postum?
Yeah.
Which is a drink made from wheat.
So Homer snaps after getting insulted and things thrown at him, and he punches Mr. Burns, knocking him out. He panics and runs home, and he goes, I punched Burns right in his 104-year-old face.
No, Josh. God damn it, Josh. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So Homer comes home just like a child. He gets through the door, he closes it, and he like huddles at the door. And Marge is like, is something wrong, homie? And he goes, no. She goes, except? He goes, except I killed Mr. Burns.
Well, maybe you didn't kill him.
It's one of my favorite lines of this
Maybe you didn't kill him. Maybe you just hurt him real bad.
Yeah, right. Because they treat him like a kid, and when Marge says something to the effect of, like, maybe if you apologize, he won't even fire you. And he, after he thinks he killed him. That's one of my favorite little scenes.
Nice.
But he goes back to the office to try and see what the damage is.
Yeah, and to apologize like Marge suggested. And we basically get Mr. Burns cowering in the corner behind a plant. And he goes, no, please, I can't bear another thrashing.
And Homer's cowed at this point. He's like, I'm so sorry. Is there anything? Burns is like, no, just stay away, please.
I love how Homer is like, how about I get some salt for that eye? It's just like,
oh no. Let me get some salt for that
so
eye.
Stupid.
So Homer leaves the room, and then Mr. Burns creeps out.
Well, he also tries to operate the phone, and he's like, oh, I've seen people operate this many times before. I'll just dial.
Because he's trying to call
Smithers. And he literally dials like, oh, I get it. SMI. And he calls Moe's Tavern. And Mo, like for the first time ever, thinks it's a prank call and actually isn't like a gullible idiot. And
he's like, is Mr. Smithers there?
Oh, Mr. Smithers, you listen to me. Huh? When I catch you, I'm going to pull out your eyes and shove them down your pants so you can watch me kick the crap out of you. Then I'm going to use your tongue to paint my boat.
Of course, Mr. Burns is like, oh. Like he doesn't even hang up. He like puts the phone in the drawer and shuts it and like goes back to cowering behind.
And we all know Mo don't have no fucking boat.
Mr. Smithers, huh? A Whalen Smithers. So now he I do like the line he says, oh, Smithers, if only you could hear me. And it cuts to Whalen on a ski boat
with people behind him.
He's like, oh no, I think Mr. Smithers needs me. I mean, Mr. Burns needs me.
And then he just docks it, like just runs it ashore. All the people crash. It's pretty funny.
Because it was an emergency. There's a cut scene there where they actually are talking to them, and they're like, "What's wrong? Is it Mr. Were you worried about Mr. Burns again?" And then he goes, "What did they say?" They talk about some '80s song where it's like, "Everything is all right. Just remember what they said." But they cut it. It wasn't that funny. So now Mr. Burns is trying to like escape, but he's got to wait until the beast is gone.
Yeah, he finds like a small
And
personal
after
mirror
all
and kind of
this,
like puts it under the crack of the door to see if Homer is still there.
like a horror
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. And of course, Homer
It's
sees
great
it. Of course,
animation.
Homer sees it right away, and it's like, "Hi,
It's
sir,
right
can I help
away.
you with something?" Because he's so
I know.
he's so
He's like,
he's so
"Ugh."
like upset, like that he punched Burns. And he wants to make it right as quickly as
He's
possible.
trying so hard to make up
Yeah.
for it.
And
And
so he checks in.
I
I love how he checks in, and he's like, "Well, it's 5 o'clock. Like, you want me to drive you home?" And Burns replies, "I'm sure the manual will indicate which lever is the velocitator, and which is the
So he goes-
deceleratrix."
he goes, "I thought I'd chauffeur myself this evening. Yes. How difficult can it be? I'm sure the manual will indicate
Yeah.
the velocitator and the
Oh, it's so good.
deceleratrix." It's exactly what they're talking about
Yep.
making up
Yep, looking up
words.
stuff. Looking up stuff,
Like,
old slang.
just stuff that sounded
Yeah.
like it was old timey,
And then I love how we show him driving home, and he's like crashing into everything, running on sidewalks,
yeah.
just being a
And he's
complete mess.
loving
And
it.
he's having a blast.
Beep, beep, out of my way. I am a motorist.
That's some nice reckless driving, Mr. B.
He's loving it. He's got this look on his face like he's enraptured by it. He's like, oh, "This is the most amazing feeling."
And I'm making record time. And then he like almost runs over Wiggum, and he's like, "That's some good driving there, Mr. B."
And he goes, Mr. Burns goes, "Beep, beep, out of the way. I'm a motorist."
So Burns does a complete 180 and is now a pro at everything. He's shredding reports,
He's self-sufficient.
making a cappuccino, and answering the phone all by himself.
So the phone rings, and he goes, our favorite
Ahoy,
line.
hoy.
Hoy, hoy. "No, you have the wrong number. This is 5246. I suspect you need more practice working your telephone machine." "Not at all. Ahoy."
Yeah.
Oh,
I love it.
Edison would have been proud. He would have been.
Oh no, it was Graham Bell, Alexander Graham Bell. Edison.
Oh, was it
Yeah,
Graham Bell?
Edison
It's the
was
other
the
one.
one who stole everything.
Right.
I also love how Homer basically gives like the newfound freedom, and of course Smithers returns from his vacation, and he catches
so
like
set that up.
no, he
real
catches.
quick.
I am because he captures Miss Burns is like
Yeah.
hugging Homer and just basically like thank
He's
you
saying thank
for, like,
you for helping me find this self-sufficiency.
freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's giving like, Smithers that comes in just as this moment is happening. So he's seeing the idiot that he got to replace him being hugged and praised by his boss, which is not what he intended. And he goes, "Oh my God, I knew I shouldn't have left."
I knew I shouldn't have left. And then he's like, no, Simpson, now you can return to Sector 7G. And Smithers is like, "All right, good." What does he say? He's like, "You heard the man, Simpson."
Yeah.
And Burns goes, "Oh, and Smithers, you're no longer needed at all. You're fired."
Ta.
And then Homer has the great line. He
You shouldn't
goes,
have gone away.
"You shouldn't have gone away on vacation."
100%. 100%. It's so funny. So back at the house, Homer feels bad about Smithers getting fired, and Lisa tries to reassure him that he is a resilient man who has, years of experience as the number 2 guy at this big power plant. And I love how he goes for jobs like piano mover, which results in a small injury.
Well, he's looking for all these jobs. One in the cutscenes was he gets a job at the Leftorium.
Oh,
There's a
really?
scene with Ned
Yeah, that's
there.
pretty funny.
But the first one is the piano
Yep.
movers, and it immediately cuts to Dr. Hibbert's office. He's like, "Oh."
He said something along the lines, "We're going to have to replace your spine with a steel rod."
Oh God, it's so painful. And he's like, "Will I ever move pianos again?" Dr. Hibb's like,
No.
"Oh Lord, no."
And then we get a call back to the racetrack. So he tries to become an announcer, but he questions the script. And
He's like, it'll be motorized mayhem. do we need all of these mayhems?
I also love how he says after that, "Fair enough, you must know your own business."
he goes, get ready for some fun. He's like, he's just, like talking to the boss in the background. Do we need to keep hustling them like this? You just hear him go, let me go.
Yeah, it's very obvious that some goons are kicking him out of the announcer booth, right?
Hey, where are you throwing?
So he's having a terrible time getting a
Yep.
job, and he's down to the
lowest job in Springfield,
option, which is guarding Barney when the beer deliveries
for the
come in.
midnight beer delivery too, which is icing on the cake, because it's not just at any time; it's at midnight. And
They make it sound particularly grim.
yeah, so Smithers
his
is
job.
basically, okay, I'll come back then, and Barney is like, I look forward to working with you.
And that's when Homer's like, no, you can't give yourself, you can't give up on yourself and take the Barney guarding job like so many of us have contemplated in our darkest moment.
I also love how as soon as they kind of figure out that like Homer is going to help Smithers get the job back, you hear a clock chime midnight, and Moe shouts, "Oh God!" And
and Barney's gone.
Barney's gone, and we hear like a truck pull up, and we just hear guys like,
the driver.
yeah, and he's like, "Oh hey, oh no, it's you, no." And you hear Barney laughing like this, like kind of maniacal, but also like happy, like joyful almost. It's
your Barney laugh is better than
and then you hear just like a crashing of bottles and like hectic noises,
like
and it all
metal
ends with a
being
Barney burp,
torn.
as you were gonna say. Yeah, very good. I love that whole bit. It's so like you would forget that joke is a part of this episode. You know, it's like because it feels like it could fit anywhere. And hats off to, I think it's Dan who does Barney for that performance, because that laughter of both being kind of scary but also happy is very hard to pull off.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Beer delivery, just sign here. Oh, no, it's you! Hey! Oh, boy! Give me that!
I love the way that they all work together in tandem to create the show, because the sound effects are brilliant.
It's so good
with the voice acting, and Moe going, "Oh God!"
I feel like
and he's cowering in the bar because you're watching them while this is happening, and he's got his head in his hands like some horrific thing just happened.
It also feels like that was the Schwartzwelder joke as well, just because it's like ridiculous and fast paced and off camera and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So what's their plan?
Where we are at this point is so Homer and Smithers are hatching a plan to get Smithers back his job.
Right.
And so they're back at the office, and he's like, Mr. Burns may have mastered 2,799 of the duties, but not a call from his mother. He still can't take call for his mother. So he calls her up. He has the great line there. He's like, I have your son Montgomery on the line. She goes, because I don't know, is this the only time in the show that we ever hear Burns' mother speak?
There's a flashback episode that they do that's reminiscent of Citizen Kane with the Rosebud thing, I believe.
Oh, right.
And there's also another flashback where it shows both Burns' mom and father. But I don't know if she speaks, and I don't think she speaks as a 124-year-old woman, 22-year-old woman. So
she goes, that improvident lackwit, always too busy striding about his atom mill to call his own mother. I'll give him what for till he cries, brassifrax.
And the whole idea is that Homer is going to transfer the call to Burns' main phone, and Smithers is going to swoop in for the rescue. And of course,
so Smithers is like crouching to get ready to go in, and now Homer's holding the phone, and all he has to do is transfer it. And there's 4 buttons: call, hold, transfer, and disconnect. And he's like, which one is for transfer? And he gets
Yep,
disconnected.
of course he does. Which I also can feel
It's
kind of
like,
like I'm terrible with phones. Like really, when those old kind of phone systems, I'm always screwing them up left
oh
and right,
yeah,
like connecting
oh yeah,
the calls, holding
yeah. We
calls.
feel
Like so, I kind of get it. But it is pretty funny that, of course, like why would Smithers even entrust Homer to do this task? Like he doesn't even need Homer. Like really.
None of us would do that.
And I love how Burns answers the phone and he's like, "Oh, hello, Matta. Sorry for pulling the plug on you and all." I don't know why I made him British all of a sudden. Sorry for pulling the plug on you and all. Who could have known you'd
He
pull through and
answers,
live for another
and
5 decades? Oh, is my
well,
face
because
red?
when Homer hangs up, now he has to pretend to be his mother. So he's like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Burns. This is your mother."
And Smithers is like, he wouldn't
And,
call his
and
mom
he's
Mr. Burns, and she
no,
sounds older.
and he's buying it at first, Mr. Burns, and then he's like, um, she doesn't call it Mr. Burns, and he goes, son, this is Mrs. Burns. I just called to say I don't love you. You're a bad son, Montel.
Montel.
I love what he calls him
Yeah.
Montel. That's one of my favorite bits. That's one of those bits that stood out. Is Homer Simpson doing his Burns' mother? It is the peak of acting in all of history. Is Dan Castellaneta doing Homer, doing this fake old lady's voice? I just called to say I don't love you.
Of course, Mr. Burns eventually picks up that it is a fake, and he comes out and he's like, "Oh, look, it's you two again." And it's, "Oh, shame on you, Smithers, especially." And I think,
And then Homer goes, "Oh, you really blew it this time, Smithers."
and this puts Smithers over the edge, and he attacks Homer, and we get a fight that's pretty brutal. There's biting, pulling of hair,
Great.
improvised weapons, etc., etc., etc.
We got Mr. Burns trying to break it up, and he's like pours water on him, and he just tries to poke
Yeah.
him with a stick.
And there's stuff like Smithers opens up the safe and and then smacks him with the door. It is a very brutal fight, and they had some fun with the audio for this too, because they were trying to make it sound like less brutal. So they kept cutting back and cutting back and cutting back, because eventually, I guess the first recording, like they had an all-out brawl with like punching and breaking and all sorts of violent sounding effects, and they had to kind of tone it down by like removing and removing and removing.
You really blew it this time, Smithers.
Stop that at once! You're fighting!
It's a great fight. Like it is very entertaining. There's one point where Smithers punches Homer in the stomach, which we all know it ain't gonna work out.
It's kind of like the Blob,
and his hand gets stuck in
like
there.
the X-Men. The Blob has like the power of being like absorbent. Nothing will hurt the Blob.
That's a theme throughout The Simpsons.
And I also love how we finally have a use for the polar bear that's been featured in Mr. Burns' office, because he climbs there.
He's scampered up to get away from the fight, and of course, inevitably,
Homer knocks
right
into it, and he goes falling to the ground.
He goes falling. It breaks through the window of the office, and he goes out of the office, which of course is on the.
And this isn't the first time we've seen Mr. Burns fall from his office. When we were doing the episode "The Joy of Sect," he was trying to be a god, and then that horrible accident happened. So Burns has fallen out of the window a few times, and we cut to basically Mr. Burns recovering from the injury. I think he has like a broken.
He's in a full body cast.
Yeah. So he definitely was injured severely. And of course, Smithers is right there by his side, and he goes,
and he's got a big smile on his
so
face.
Happy because it's right back to where everything started, the good old rubber band reality. And one of my favorite like little cutesy things, because he kind of treats him like a child. He's like, "Here comes the endangered condor into the power lines."
He's like, "I've got Bobo hot from the dryer."
Yeah.
And of course, Burns is like, No. I'm self-reliant now. Although I could use a Spanish peanut.
With skin, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, sir." And I also love how Burns is like, "Yes, make sure that Simpson fellow gets what's coming to him." I already have, sir.
And we cut to the Simpsons house, and this is one of my favorite endings. And he's got a big gift basket on the table from Smithers, of course, because Smithers got his job back, and Burns is so helpless now. All things worked out. And Bart goes, "What'd you get that
For
for?"
knocking Mr. Burns out of a third-story window.
Makes sense to me.
Lisa
goes, "Did he die?"
What am I, a doctor?
As last line, that might be the best last line of any episode. Well, there's some good ones we've had. But
It's a solid
what am
ending.
I, a
It's a
doctor?
solid ending.
Did he die? What am I, a doctor?
Yeah. I also love that how Homer thought that he would die from a punch to the face, but like falling out of a multi-story window. It's like, what am I, a doctor? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not getting in trouble for it, so who cares? Well, right on, buddy. So what's your final thoughts on Homer the Smithers?
This is an enduring classic. This is one where the writing is so good, the direction, the expressions the characters have, the voice acting, is all perfect, and it's Schwartzwelder at his best. And one of those episodes that really defined jokes that I made with some of my friends still to this day, but especially when this one came out right in the middle of the 90s, we would say these things all the time. This is Mr. Burns.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Well, my final thoughts. Homer the Smithers is a good story that mirrors a 3-camera sitcom. Oakley surprised that this wasn't an early episode. Makes sense to me, especially when you consider the wacky, expansive directions the show has taken by season 7. I mean, for example, Homer went to space before he became like the boss's assistant. The jokes come at a consistent clip, and some will be a meme until the internet ceases to exist. I'm looking at you, Cereal on Fire. I enjoyed this episode, but it doesn't come up in my usual examples for this season. As we all know, season 6 through 8 are the pinnacle in my experience and my opinion.
Season 7 is packed.
And so for that reason, I feel like it's overshadowed by titans like King Size Homer, Radioactive Man, Flying Hellfish, 22 short stories about Springfield, and Lisa the Vegetarian, just to name a few. So it's a little weird for me because I do enjoy this episode, but I feel like it's just you're competing with the gold medalists, like you're the creme de la creme. Like, and when you're up against that, you don't shine as brightly as you would if this came into another season that wasn't as jam packed with just iconic, crazy stuff.
I think that there's a defining element throughout these is they've hit a stride.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Well, good job, Robin. Do you hear?
Well, good job, Josh.
Robin, do you hear that sound?
What's that, Josh?
Well, then you know what time it is. It's the Krusty
Brand
Seals of Approval. So what do you give Homer the Smithers on a scale of 1 to 5?
It's another 5 for me, Josh. This is one that had such an immediate, profound impact on me and my friends, and has endured throughout. It's an episode that I love, and I'm just a sucker for some of these Schwartzwelder episodes, so I'm going to give it another 5.
Nice.
And fuck you.
I have a little bit of a controversial score for people who know. Like you would think 5. Obviously, it's season 7, which is in the heart of the 3 seasons that I love the most. It's John Schwartzwelder, who's like my favorite Simpsons writer, period. But as I said, this kind of like feels like just overshadowed by other episodes during this time. And I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5. It's wahoo. It's solid. It's good. But it's not like upper pinnacle, in my opinion. It's just good, classic, middle of the road.
There you go.
Nice.
Hey, well, I mean, that's good. We've been trying to find where our little differences come in.
Yeah, and I just it just was very ho-hum, like which isn't a bad thing. I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on it. It just was very run-of-the-mill, plot-wise, and it does have some great jokes. But it's not one of my like go-to, like, oh, if you like The Simpsons or if you haven't seen The Simpsons before, like you got to see this episode type of deal. Which is why I'm giving it a 3 instead of like a 4 or a 5. So
And I killed Mr. Burns.
And that's a wrap for Sacrilicious with Robin and Snerts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're feeling generous, then please leave us a 5-star review with a few sentences. We are currently on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Snerts shoutouts for this episode, going back to the OG, Mom. I had a nice 2-week visit, like I said before, and she's still an ace in the kitchen, man. She cooked a beef roast and some garlic creamy mashed potatoes, and we had a nice salad and some rolls, and it was delightful. So shout out to Mom, and I'm glad she's still doing well at the ripe old age of 75. Only, halfway to 122 or 122. I also want to do a shout out to the 2024 Bossies by Boss Rush Network and Boss Rush Media. Boss Rush is a hard thing to say when you're trying to speak. Thanks to Edward Vernell for the opportunity to submit a guest video highlighting some of my favorite 2024 video games moments and experiences. You can check this out on January 16th, 2025 on YouTube, and I will put a link in the show notes. There's also To Back Pain, It's Not the Chronic I Was Hoping For, and finally, Dr. Moxford, the raddest fan of them all. You want to hear more from your old pal Snerts? Then check out the PlayStation Experience on your podcast platform of choice. I can also be found on most of the things at Lord_Snerts. Robin, outro and plugs. Do you have them? Do you want to say something?
I'll say to you, I'm so excited to be back in 2025. Can't believe it. Somebody said the other day that January 2023 was 2 years ago. I was like, oh my God. That's crazy. So shout out getting back, episode 17. Really excited about that. And shout out to Charles, my burr friend, who has a podcast, and my friend Shane, who also has a podcast. Both of them, talking to them has helped me, kind of learn some things and get some ideas about, what we can do.
Do those podcasts have names?
Like Exciting News. We can use 15-second clips.
Oh, we can, without getting in trouble.
We can use 15-second
Oh, that's
clips,
good to know.
Josh.
All right, I can keep it to 15 seconds. Do these podcasts have names?
I get my Wookiee. One I've not heard. Shane's has been off of the air for quite a while.
Okay.
The other one is called A Girl, a Boy, and a Buffy podcast. I believe that might not be correct.
So like a Buffy watch-along show?
It is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's not a watch-along show. They actually take themes throughout the entire arc of the show, and they discuss those in depth.
Cool.
In relation to different seasons and episodes.
Nice. Well, our goal is to get the next episode of Sacrilicious with Robin and Snerts out on January 26th. I picked Thirst Trap, a corporate love story from season 35. That's right, folks.
Exciting.
We're branching out from the golden era, and I did watch this one when I was traveling home, and I thought it was an interesting, more modern take on The Simpsons, and I'm excited to talk about it with y'all next time.
Absolutely.
Smell you later, true believers.
I can't believe that replaced goodbye.
Ahoy, ahoy!
Need all this mayhem. We do. Alright, fair enough. Suppose you know your business.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.